improving the human condition, and which is a celebration of the glory of God. More particularly, if we go to the Protégé, I have explained this in more detail in the biography, but there were very fundamental theological, philosophical problems at stake. The relationship between God and His creation. How did the origin of the earth, evolution already with these fossils. And we know nowadays how connected these scientific doctrines are with the theological and philosophical views. So I think the connections are actually there everywhere. If we don't take Leibniz thought in the restrictive sense of being a philosophical, strictly philosophical, metaphysical thought. Regarding more specifically the issue of why the monadology is so little visible in the Theodicy, my own answer to that would be that the Theodicy is no exception in comparison to any other of Leibniz's works. That is, Leibniz nowhere tells the whole story. But if we want to know the whole story, then there are key pieces of the puzzles that we have to put together. And I think this is what happens in the Theodicy with the monadology. And as you have granted at the very beginning, we have to keep distinguished the monadology with the capital M, the text of the monadology, which obviously was written after the Theodicy. Therefore, at that time, Leibniz did not have that particular text in mind. And the monadology with the small m, because I think by 1710, that was in place. And it is a fundamental piece of the puzzle in order to understand what the deeper metaphysical commitments of Leibniz in the Theodicy are.
We can allow you a very brief response. Lunch calls.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to respond so much as to suggest that, on the one hand, there has been a tendency, I think, in working on Leibniz to try to make the things more closely interconnected than they really are. To see, particularly, I think, a doctrine like the Monadology as being the key to absolutely everything, and to try to read everything in terms of just a couple of doctrines. And against that, I think it is good to remind us that Leibniz wasn't interested just in philosophy, just in metaphysics, or just in theology, or just in mathematics, and to remind ourselves of the large range of his intellectual activities that included all sorts of historical, empirical, scientific, natural historical things, as well as the things that we think of as sort of core philosophical or theological interests. And in a way, that's what it is that I was trying to do, to recall the Fontenelle picture of Leibniz the charioteer with 8 horses going off in different directions, and Leibniz sort of able to keep them all together. But on the other hand, I think it's important to remember. Yeah, but you're right. But the thing is, it's perhaps I was going off too much in that direction, and it's important to also recall that in Leibniz's mind, at least, there was a certain kind of unity, not the kind of strict unity that you get in the Cartesian or Spinozistic system. And that it's wrong to point to one specific intellectual domain and say, this is the center in terms of which everything else is to be understood, be that mathematics or theology or metaphysics or whatever. But perhaps what we need is to be able to balance these two pictures at the same time.
Relativism is not within our capacity, but it wasn't within Leibniz's either. Let's thank our speakers.